Hey everyone, howdy and welcome back to another AppSmith episode. How are you doing? Today is Friday, which means Tech Workshop Day. Kevin Blanco here, your Senior Developer Relations Advocate and your trusty guide to unlocking the potential of internal enterprise apps. Please let us know in the chat where are you tuning in and what are your plans for this weekend. Mines are recording some new videos for you all that we will publish next week. If you haven't already, please subscribe to our YouTube channel because we are constantly publishing new videos every week, so you are equipped with everything you need to learn in order to build awesome enterprise-ready apps. I'd like to highlight that last week we announced AppSmith AI, the best-in-class and easiest to use low-code integration to add AI capabilities like text generation, summarization, and image recognition to your internal apps with no complex setup or external platform integration needed, as is built natively into AppSmith. This week we published the first how-to video, and the next week we'll publish more videos. Also, the same case for custom widgets. Today, Joseph will showcase a custom widget, and in our YouTube you will find guides on how to build your first custom widget and everything you need to learn about this new feature. Last but not least, before we get into the subject, I want to remind you that we have our monthly contest. This month's topic is AI, and all you have to do in order to participate is to submit your template in our community portal and you will be participating. All right, let me bring our star Joseph to the stage so he can delight us with the new.
All right, so here it is. I've got a custom widget wired up using DayPilot.js. This is a library that has tons of different options, Gantt charts, timeline, all kinds of crazy different time and date related views. But specifically, there's this Kanban one that I'm using here, and it gives you some examples and shows you what the data would look like for the config that you pass in, which is just some key value pairs and then a function that you run when the card gets moved. And then there's what the card data would look like for a single card, and you get an array of them. You also give it a list of the columns that you want to move stuff between, and I won't get into swim lanes, but there's basically a lot of options here. And so I've got this wired up with some dynamic data. It's coming from this data I have here in Supabase, and I have two different text columns, a status and a priority, and both of them have a fixed list of values. So this could be set up as an enum column, but I'm starting out with this as text and showing you how to get it connected, and then we're going to add something here. This would actually work better as an enum column, and we'll see why here in a little bit. So for now, I've got it connected to where, let's look at this one here, connect data, and on this side it is new and urgent. So I can move this into in progress, and you'll see that it updated that one column here. Now I can change this to a Kanban board by priority, and then take this same one and I'll move it to a low priority. And that was quick. It was already changed when I got here. So connect data is now at the low priority, and I'm able to edit that column, whichever one I select here, by dragging back and forth. If you wanted to get more into like editing the text itself, I would say do it outside the custom widget at that point and just pull it up in a modal or something or a different page. But we'll keep going here on editing by dragging, basically. So I've got that much working. There's a few things that aren't great about it that I'd like to improve. So towards the end here, we'll switch over to the live coding part. These colors could be dynamic based on the status. Another issue is that if this column is totally empty, you'll see that it's going to disappear here in a minute when I refresh. I don't want to lose it just yet. Let me put something in every column and I'll refresh, and you'll see that I have 4 columns here of possible statuses. If I move everything out of completed and refresh, then the column for complete is gone because I'm just getting the list of existing values. And so I really need something to be in a completed state for it to exist as an option. That's why we want these to be an enum, and I can get the list of values from the database. So for now, I've got it just pulling the list of existing values, and it creates some columns off of those. So I want to add some color, maybe fix that column thing. And depending on how much time we have, set up an order for these. Because like right now, it's arbitrary, or maybe the order they are in the database. So a sort order for, logically, like new, in progress, in review, complete. So that's what's working, what I want to add. Now let's look at how this works, how the existing setup is connected on the custom widget here. So this whole app is mainly just the one custom widget. And then I have a select widget that lets you choose which field picks the different columns here. If I choose status, these are the values for the statuses in the database, and same with priority. So it's just those two widgets. The rest of it's for looks. And then when you look at the JS, there's not a whole lot here. I'm taking, these are the two columns that I would like to be the options to pick from. I'm kind of hard coding this, just saying that I know in my data, these are the two columns I would like my Kanban board to be able to switch between. And then I take that array and map it and turn it into the key value pairs that the select widget is expecting. So not much going on there. Column list. This is saying for the column that was selected here, give me all of the possible values for it. And then that creates the different columns for the Kanban board that you can drag between. So again, that one's pretty simple. When it's time to update a task, I want to see it in the list again in the new position. And I've added an alert, but other than that, I mean, this is really basic. It just runs, update the query, and then get the list of tasks. And when the user changes the dropdown, I want to, now if we're looking at the status field, I need to see the list of potential values for the status. So I get those options and then rerun the get tasks. So again, very minimal code involved in this outside of the custom widget. And I stress that because a lot of the complexity here is due to just learning how to use another library. It's about the JS that's involved in making this work. And then there's a little bit about the custom widget as well. And that is, going to be new to everyone right now because that just came out. It took me some time to figure it out. But all that to say that it's pretty simple outside of a custom widget. And now that we can create libraries of custom widgets, we could figure out the complex part and you copy and paste it and you see how simple this implementation is outside of the custom widget. There's almost nothing going on outside the custom widget. It's all inside that you could copy, paste, connect your data. So let's look at how that data is connected. I'm passing in a few different things here, and half of it is placeholders, just so that the property's there, so it's not like undefined or missing. But the widget is going to populate what task just got updated and what column did it get moved to. So there's some triggers, some events that I've set up inside the custom widget that'll push data to this part of the model. And then the rest of AppSmith can look at that model. And then we're passing in the tasks from Supabase for my get task query. And I'm also using that function that gives me the list of columns. So this array here, the user selects a column, I query to get all the possible values from the database, and then all that raw data gets fed into the custom widget. Again, it's still not much code. It's just a couple different JSON arrays. So all of the real code here is inside of the source of the custom widget. And so now we're going to get into where it's a little more complex looking, but again, it's mainly just the code for DayPilot and then figuring out how to connect that to the AppSmith events. So we'll start with the HTML. I'm importing that one script, and then I just have a main div and a div called DP for DayPilot. This div is empty when the page is first defined, and then everything happens here in this function. So I'm going to collapse that. And we have a new DayPilot instance here that we're creating, and that is fed to the first parameter here is which div. What's the ID of the div where you want this Kanban to live? Then it gets a config object. And the object itself is just some simple key value pairs until you get to this one on card move. Okay. All of this is specific to DayPilot, nothing to do with AppSmith. Inside of the on card moved, what do you want it to, what should happen there, right? So this is a sync function. It's going to pass some arguments. So where did I find that part of the code? There's an API part of the docs. Okay, DayPilot, Kanban, events, on card moved. All right. When a card gets moved, it's going to have this event with a bunch of arguments. One of them is the card. That's just the object that was being used to render that card in its previous state. Then there's the column that it is being moved to, the target. Swim lane is like the height, which position it is vertically there. And a few other things. I'm not using these at all, so we won't get into that. So back to the code. Okay. When a card gets moved, first I just say, what task got updated instead of having to reference it with all these nested paths. So I'm pulling out the updated task and pulling out which column it got sent to. Then update the model. So outside of the custom widget, the rest of AppSmith can know what happened. Now that the model is updated, I'm defining what's the old task array, the full list of tasks that existed before this one was moved. And then the new list of tasks is that same array, old task. I map over it. And in that map, I'm going to just return the exact same task in every single case, unless it's that one that got moved. Okay, so if the task ID equals the updated task ID, then give me the updated task. Otherwise, just return the task as it was, because the other ones didn't get edited. Then update the model with the new array of tasks. And the new task here, that gets sent also to the, I guess, to this instance of the DP DayPilot like Kanban. So independently, you've got to get that data out of the widget, so give it to the model, as well as tell the DayPilot library that you've got some new data. That's what it's kind of doing the same thing, sending it 2 places. If anybody sees a better way to do that, let me know. Okay, so then we've got a trigger. This is where I want something to happen outside of the custom widget every time these get dragged between columns. And so we'll go more into that when we get outside of the code here and back into the AppSmith editor. For now, this part is just saying that there's an event in AppSmith and I want you to run it every time the user drags something between. And so that is getting actions to run outside of the custom widget. Lastly, all of that has happened now, and we have the new array updated. So we want to rebuild this whole Kanban board. And so that's this function here. This one's pretty simple. That just says that use these columns, which change, right? The user can pick if we're plotting this by the status or the priority. So since that can change, every time that happens, I need to rebuild this Kanban. I give it the list for the columns and then the cards. And then there's this DayPilot.update, which will re-render the positions without resetting the whole widget and losing the state. And then we have onReady. So once AppSmith is loaded and it's ready to do something with this custom widget, I'm running this change group by, which is just the function that runs when the user changes, they want to plot it by status or priority. So That runs the 2 queries to get the list of fields and then the list of data to go with it and rebuild it. And on ready, you have to initialize it the first time around. Still, almost all of this stuff is specific to DayPilot. I know it can make custom widgets seem pretty complex, but you really have to understand the library pretty well before you get here. And then that part of AppSmith that you connect it to, it's a little complex at first, but it seems like a ton when you put them both together at first. So on ready, we initialize it only the first time around. On model change, I still have to send that data to the list, but and I still have to run this function that builds the card, but you don't want to run the init other than on ready. So the very first time it loads, you run init. When the model changes or when you want to do other UI updates or whatever, you still want to pass in the tasks and the columns if they've changed or whatever. But the building the Kanban, maybe, I might have just found a bug here. On model changed, maybe I might want to come back here and set the cards as well every time the model changes too, and the column list. I don't know if I can change the list of columns from inside. So we'll look at that more later. Lastly here, I've got some colors that I want to add. Okay, I don't think I'm using that quite yet. I pasted that in here, and I think what we're going to do is actually use that outside the custom widget. So that part isn't doing anything yet. That is the code for the custom widget. So that's almost everything here. There's a little bit of references in the queries that I want to show as far as how all this works and is wired up, and then we'll get into adding those couple of features I wanted to add. So let's check out getting the list of options. The user has a select widget where they can pick from one of those 2 values. I showed this select column. So I know in my data, there's only one of these 2 columns that you would use for a Kanban board. This lets the user pick one of those 2. And then I want to get the distinct values from that column, but I'm renaming it to column so that it's always called column. Okay. If the value they're selecting here is status, it's going to give me back a header of status, but then they pick priority, and now the header's priority. And I'm trying to do this dynamic update where dragging between columns always edits something, but the thing that it edits is different. If they choose status, then dragging between columns changes the status, right? So to make it dynamic, I want a fixed reference point. I'm getting the data of this list of values as column, and then I get the tasks. So the tasks, I want a column in the task data called column, and it's got that list of values so that I can drag between it, and it doesn't matter if I'm looking at priority or status. There's a column called column, and that's the one I want to edit. And then I want all the other values from it. So I actually end up getting column and status and priority. Kind of a hack to make this library work easier without having to map over my data. I'm just grabbing an extra column, always giving it that name. And I don't know, it works. Maybe there's a better approach, but it's not duplicate data. That could be different because it's the exact same column and I'm going to edit it. So I think it's pretty solid. We'll see what happens. When you update a column, so here's where it gets a little tricky. The column that I want to update is whichever column the user has picked. And so they can choose the drop down. Are we going to change the priority or the status? The value I want to set it to gets sent to the model when the user drags it in that function, that on card move. So back in the code that's specific to DayPilot.js, there's this on card move function, and I'm sending the new column to the model, and now I can access it here at custom1.model. And so I'm dynamically picking the field target and the value, and then where the ID equals the ID from the updated task. You'll see these are blank or undefined right now because once the update happens, then I get the full list of tasks, and that re-renders the model, and now there's no more like queued updated task. So run the update every time the column gets dragged between, the card is dragged between columns, and then get the list of tasks. And now that the array of tasks being fed into the widget has changed, it resets it, and now there's not a updated task. So it disappears pretty quick. I did have it showing on the UI kind of like as a debugging thing. If you want to look at this, updated task thing, you could show it on the UI, but you'll see it clear right after. So that was all the queries. Did I show everything here? I think I might have walked through all of the functionality, and we can get into some live coding. So what I want to do is the first problem is that if there's not like a placeholder row with a certain value, then I'm going to lose it. Let me go to the deploy mode here. It's a little tricky dragging between columns because you have to like click an extra time, or else it will move the whole widget on you. So see how there's only one in the completed, and if I move this out of here, it's going to edit it. That part's working. But now when I refresh this on status, the completed column doesn't exist anymore. And if I go to priority, I've got 2 on low here. I can make a third one in low, and now there's nothing in medium. And back to priority. And now the column medium's gone. So what I really need is a way to get the full list of possible values. But what I'm currently doing is just getting the existing distinct list of, whatever's in the database with the current values. That is because both of these are text fields, and there is nowhere that has the full list of values. I could have it in a JS object and list it there, but a better approach, what I want to do next here is set up an enum column. We define all the enums that are possible, and then we do a query to the database to get that list of enums and make that feed the list of columns in the Kanban board. So first thing, what we'll do is change one of these to an enum. I tried this a little while ago and realized that the UI here, it helps a lot, but you got to do an extra step first and create the enum type. It's separate from the column definition. So there is no option to choose an enum here because my database does not have an enum type created yet. So first, we'll create an enum type. There's a different UI here for that. And we will create the status list. And then we'll have new in progress, in review, and complete. Was it complete or completed? Oh, I don't have any, so we won't have any conflicts. We'll call it complete. So I'm defining an enum type. It's not a specific column, it's just a type, and I think you can use it in more than one column if you wanted. So we're creating that type first. Now I will go back to the status column here, which is currently text. We're going to edit that and make it a enum type not showing yet. Cancel. So I've got an enum type there. It just didn't show up in the dropdown. See what, maybe it just needed to refresh. Yes, other. See, it's above the other ones here. So create enum type first. Might have to refresh, and then it's going to show right here. So I'm picking status as the enum type for this field. When you go to save this, if there are any values in your data that don't match, it's going to have an error, and you got to fix your data first, or go add that extra value to your allowed values in your enum list. I'm going to do the same thing with priority now while I'm here. And got to create a new enum first, actually. we use this page. So priority. All right, and that one's saved good too. If you do have any in your data that don't match up, you'll get an error. Did that the first time around, but this time we're good. Now we have two enum columns. That still says text there. Let's see. Oh, right. All I did was create the enum type. So now we can change the type on this one to connect to that enum priority. Save that. Cool. Next, I want to get the list of possible values from the database in place of, where was it? Right here. I've hard coded. These are the two columns that I wanted to use. And then I get the list of possible options by saying, okay, they picked some field. Now go get all of the distinct values from that field. But if nothing's currently urgent, it doesn't give me that option. So I want to replace this query with one that, instead of querying that one column of the database and looking for what happens to be there, I want to query the schema of the database and get the values I just defined in that enum. And I asked my good friend ChatGTP, and it says there's this enum label in the PG enum table, and you got to get it by ID, but the ID, you don't know it. You got to get it by name. So there's this nested select query. So I'm going to copy that, and we will replace this get options query. You know what? Before I do that, I want to see a value disappear. And so I had already removed urgent. I just needed to rerun the query. So there's only 3 records. Urgent doesn't exist. Now, if I run this as is, it's going to give me that column from the user. I don't have this column. I need to put the one coming from the select widget. Select one, selected option value. And this should give me the full list. But let's see, it's calling it enum label. I got to get it back to calling it column, so I don't break that link that I had. And now I have a column called column, and it is giving me new, in progress, whatever. If we go change the UI to priority, looks like I broke something here. Run it again. It's still called column, but now it gives me low, medium, high, urgent. So that part's working. It's not rendering here now, though. What broke that? Okay, the list of columns going into the model, I'm telling it to use this list of columns, but they're blank. And so that's coming from the column list function here, JS object, column list. Yes, that is coming back blank. So get options. But when I run it here, it's good. I made a backup of this last time I tried it, so let's see if this is any different. Do I have a typo in there? I think I might have spelled column wrong. All right. Good thing I saved that last time. So save myself a bunch of debugging there. You see how the medium column is empty now? Priority, status. and complete is empty. Yeah, cool. Okay, that works. So we changed both text columns. Well, first we created the enums, the enum types, and then changed both of those text columns to enums, and then used a query against the schema to actually get the list of values for that enum. And the field that I'm getting it from is dynamic based on the one that the user picked, but I'm always selecting it as column. And then that way, when I want to edit the column that they drug it between, that's going to change if it should be a status that they're changing or a priority. So that's how I've made that part dynamic. I think we got that one working. So it's got the placeholder columns for every status that's possible or every priority that's possible. So next I want to move on to making the color based on the priority, because what we'll do is use like low, medium, high, urgent, and go from like green to red. So first I'm going to define the list of colors in an object, and we'll use keys to access it, and you give it a status and it'll come back as a color. So right here, that is what I started over here in the custom widget. Actually, I've already written this. Let's see, inside the source of the custom widget, that's what I had down here that I ended up not using. Now you'll notice that in a JS file here, this is a full, page of JavaScript. You declare it as const, and then the name equals whatever. So I'm going to cut that and paste it into my JS object, but the syntax is different because now we're not in a JS file, we're in a JavaScript object. So we're inside of an object. You don't use const, and instead of equals, it's a colon. And then instead of a semicolon, it's comma in between items because you're just another key value. So now JS object 1 dot priority color is this object, and then dot low would give us green, medium would give us yellow, whatever. So given a certain priority, we can return a color using this object. Now, like I got to see how the color is fed in to DayPilot. Let's see. This is the API. That page was nested in there. It's kind of tricky to find, so I'm going to leave that there. Let's see, Kanban, constructor. Somewhere there's like showing you the example. It's got the data structure and how the colors are set up. Constructor. Properties. Bark. It's called bar color, but I wanted to show the docs, and I am having a hard time finding stuff in their docs. Here it is. Yes, my data has an ID and a name, and it's got most of it, but when I query my data, it does not come back with a bar color. And I wouldn't want to store that as a column name anyway, right? I want the color to mean something coming from the priority. And I don't want to have to store like both values. It should only be in one spot. So we have to add this property to our data, map over it, and add in this color. So I think if we do that and make it based on that object that I just defined there, we just need to pass in the data with that extra property. Okay, let's look at the data going into the model, and get task data. Yeah, I'm inserting the response of the query here directly, but instead of that, I want to map over it and add in this color property. But that's too much to write, like right here. So we're gonna make another function. So first, I think, yeah, it's just straight return it, and then in the map, I got to add the color. Return get tasks.data.map for each task. Okay, for each task, return. No, let me define the color first. Const color equals, and then I want to look at this array of colors here. I think I want to put this inside of the function. All right, so first I'm declaring colors as my object inside of the map. Color, so we're mapping over each task. Color will be the task's priority, using that as a property accessor inside colors. So we'll go to colors, and then inside of there, the task, this one's going to stay hard coded to the status. And now that I know the color, I want to return an object with a bar color property of color, and then just the rest of the properties of that task. There it is. Column, did it add the bar color? Let's try just the color. That's not returning anything. Okay. Colors, const colors, status. It's not accessing that color. Const colors is this object. Low, medium, high. And statuses. Oh. Priority. Okay. Live coding fail. I'm using the wrong column. Initially, I intended to use priority from low to urgent, green to red, and then somewhere my brain started using status while I'm over there coding. So I think if I switch that to priority. Yes, and then on top of that, I want the rest of the task object with the spread operator here. Yes, okay. So I got a bar color and then the rest of the task, and it's based on the priority. High is orange, low is green. Yeah, cool. That data now needs to be used in the widget because I didn't connect it yet. All I did is map over it. And so instead of the query response directly going here, I got that new function I just wrote, add colors. And I want to actually run the function, I think. Yeah. Hey, check it out. All these are green and they're low. Yellow. If I move one here, it's going to, it didn't turn it orange though. Hang on. Priority. So if I put one of these into medium, let's deploy this. Okay, so when you're by status, the colors are kind of mixed because the colors don't mean status. But if I put it in priority, the colors are working dynamically and matching up. That works. That should be orange though. Oh, wait, yellow. There, it did change. It just took a minute. Hey, all right, we got it. Cool. So I fixed the issue with the blank columns by changing that to an enum. And then we just made the colors dynamic. Let's just walk through how that works real quick one more time. So inside this function, I'm mapping over the data. I got an object with my list of colors. And then I use the priority from that task as a property object, or to access the object, the key. And so low gives me back green, whatever. Map over that and return a bar color property based on the docs here that show that's an optional property. If it's not there, it defaults to red, I guess, unless you add some CSS. And then after that new object I'm constructing here, I do that one field plus expand the rest of the task. So then we swap that out, connected it to the model here, and it seems to work both ways because the color change it gets reflected after the edit. So it doesn't matter, which column you're on or what mode this is in. I don't think the color should change at all here. This one's yellow. I keep doing that in edit mode. If you click once first, I think you can, yeah. So changing columns in status, in a status mode here, is not changing the color. And in priority, it is. Sweet. All right. Well, I think that's enough for today on this. We got pretty far on it. There's a few things that I want to add still before we publish this as a template, but it's coming along pretty well. There was someone in Discord asked over the weekend about, how you can create a Kanban board, and we've posted solutions before with a list widget, and then you need 2 or 3 or X number of list widgets side by side. And before custom widgets, that was the best solution we had. But now it is truly possible, a real custom widget, dynamic columns, dynamic number of columns, and the group by, like which column is it organizing all of this by. So I think this is, really a full Kanban experience. It's not like iframe hack. Custom widgets have really enabled some awesome use cases. So I hope you guys enjoyed these Friday Tech workshops. It's been a lot of fun so far, and we're going to do some really cool stuff coming up. Also looking forward to seeing what the community submits and any questions as well, so we can do that Q&A workshop. So thanks again for joining, everyone. Looking forward to your submissions. See you next week. Thanks.